Perhaps you're one of those people who has had a difficult time warming up to Scotch whiskey. Maybe you found it unapproachable and difficult to like. But you're getting tired of boring old beer and wine. You want to move on to an adult drink. But your instincts about Scotch aren't wrong. It is somewhat inaccessible and can be overpowering if you're not adapted to it. But maybe you just need the right guide. Let me walk you through it. First, you can't drink whiskey like you do other drinks, whether you're having Scotch, bourbon, or any other type. It's too strong. It bites back if you let it. You need to take it slowly, handle it carefully. You can't even smell it the same way you would other things. You can't just open up your nose and vacuum it in like you would a bouquet of roses or a hot apple pie. Don't get me wrong, whiskey can have some wonderful aromas, but it's better to smell it with your mouth open and let the alcohol vapors travel through your nose and out your mouth. You don't want it to get trapped in your head hole for too long, because it might sting you. And when you sip it, you can't just chug or slurp it down like you might an iced tea or a cold glass of lemonade. It's far too strong for that. You need to take very small sips, as though you're drinking hot coffee and don't want to burn your tongue. Because whiskey is hot, even if it's not hot in the same way coffee can be. And when you get that first sip in your mouth, don't just swallow it right away. After the initial attack, you should let it linger in there for a few moments. Roll it around in your mouth a little or chew it to subdue it and break its will. Only then should you finally swallow it. So now that you know how to drink Scotch whiskey, maybe you're ready for your first bottle. But what one should you buy? There is a bewildering array of choices out there, and you have no idea where to begin. Ultimately, you just end up buying one you've already heard of. After all, it is one of the best-selling Scotch whiskies on the planet, so it has to be good, right? You get it home, open it up, and pour yourself a glass. You stick your nose in and find it difficult to get a read on what you're smelling. There's sweetness in there for sure, and some fruit too, but something ashy as well. You give it a taste. It comes across as an unexpected combination of flavors. If you were making a scented candle based on this, you might title it Candy Apple Ashtray. There's quite a number of flavor notes in there, but it isn't clear if they all belong together. It's like a symphony orchestra, but the part at the beginning where they're all practicing separately, making a cacophony of sounds, and no one's playing the same song. You're not sure what to make of this Scotch. It's intriguing, perhaps, but you're not convinced you like it yet. Maybe there's just too many different grains in there, or too many different whiskeys all blended together. You need something simpler. You need a type of Scotch that's just one type of grain, aged in one type of barrel, from just one distillery. Of course, that decision lands you in the realm of single malts. But again, which one should you choose? All single malts are distilled from malted barley, so they're made from only one type of grain. And the whiskey inside a bottle of single malt can only come from one distillery. But you want whiskey from only one type of barrel as well, since the barrel type can contribute as much flavor as the grain does. So where should you start? What's the most commonly used barrel for aging Scotch whiskey? It's old bourbon barrels, right? Barrels that dumped their bourbon long ago, never to be reunited with it again. Because after all, barrels can only be used to age bourbon once. So when they're done, they might as well be used to mature Scotch whiskey. You look for a single malt that's aged exclusively in ex-bourbon barrels and pick one out. There was another one you were looking at, but you chose the one that was a little less expensive. Should you have chosen that other one? Maybe next time. You get it home and taste it. There are some surprisingly pleasant flavors. There's fruit, like apricot and apple, and some sweetness too, like caramel and vanilla. You don't know if you've fallen in love yet, but you're starting to think this could be something. You're at least liking it enough to explore further. But what's the next step? Maybe you should try malt whiskey aged in a different type of barrel. But what would that type of barrel be? You've already tried a single malt Scotch from bourbon barrels made of American oak. Maybe you should move on to European oak. But these barrels never held bourbon. Instead, they used to contain a fortified wine, that is, sherry from Spain. Often single malts blend a mix of bourbon and sherry barrels, but you want to see what a purely sherry-aged malt tastes like, so that makes your options more limited. You look across the shelves at your local whiskey shop, but you can only find two, and you're still not sure which one to pick. They're both about the same price. One has a 12-year-old age statement, and the other is barrel-proof, not watered down at all. You aren't sure you're ready for something that strong yet, though, so you grab the 12-year-old. As you're cashing out, you do have some lingering doubts as to whether you made the right choice. And is this one really going to be worth the high price tag? Oh well. You get it home and taste it. You don't find the apple and vanilla from before, but instead this one has more baking spices, sour red fruit, and some wine-like characteristics. You can't decide whether you like this or the bourbon barrel Scotch better, but it does make you want to dive deeper. So where do you go from here? You've heard that some single malts are smoky. They all use barley, of course, but when the distillers malt the barley to turn the starch into sugar and the grains they ferment into alcohol, most just use hot air to stop the barley's growth. But some producers use the smoke from burning peat fires to dry out the grain, which is an organic substance composed of dense decomposed plant matter, and the resulting whiskey becomes infused with the smoke. You're intrigued by this, but what do you pick? You narrow down the limited selection at your local shop to 2 choices, and again you have a difficult time choosing between the 2. Finally, you just grab one and check out. But have you made the right choice? You aren't sure. You get it home and open it up. The pungent odor hits you immediately. Lots of smoke, salt, and briny sea air billow out of the glass. There's a little bread and a touch of sweetness in the background as well. You have some trouble picking out characteristics familiar from the other bourbon-aged Scotch you tried. You can't find any fruit, and the sweetness is mostly gone, apparently completely transformed by the smoke. Do you like it? Maybe. The experience is so utterly unfamiliar that you have trouble deciding whether it's good or not. You need more time with it. But there's no time, man! You must go deeper! So what's next? So far, you've tried malt Scotch whiskey made from unsmoked barley in an American oak bourbon barrel, unsmoked barley in a European oak sherry barrel, and smoked barley in a bourbon barrel. Do they make malt whiskey from smoked barley aged in sherry barrels? You need to find out. After searching, you're disappointed to find only one candidate locally. There was another option you considered, but it was more expensive, and they didn't have it on the shelf today. Anyway, the one you picked wasn't aged exclusively in European oak sherry barrels, but the majority of it was, so it'll have to do. You get it home and try it out. Immediately, you're struck both by its heavy smokiness and also its strong sherry character. So much so that you have trouble determining which one is the dominant flavor. Do these 2 get along, or do they just bicker? You can't decide. Both flavors have strong personalities, so it's difficult to tell whether they make a harmonious whole or not. After all this, where do you go from here? You still haven't tried unsmoked malt whiskey aged in a blend of bourbon and sherry barrels. And what would come after that? Scotch aged in port wine barrels? Malt whiskey aged in rum barrels? Where does this Scotch whiskey rabbit hole end? You don't know, but there are already signs that a transformation is taking place. You've ordered a kilt that should be arriving in the mail any day now. Your first bagpipe lesson starts next Tuesday. You find yourself making haggis for dinner again. What will you be once the transformation is complete? Only time will tell. Can you ever go back to the person you were? Or will your old self be molted off like snakeskin?